Chapter 6: Food and Nutrition. If Samuel Clemens were alive today, he might rightly say that everyone is talking about food and nutrition. Then he could go on to say that reading several books on the subject could be a repetition. In this chapter, in the attempt to bring to you new and provable facts, we have avoided the constantly increasing act of authors reading other books and presenting the same facts in a new book. Not that some of our material may have enlightened some previous exposition, for in that matter all credit is due. But we are overwhelmingly impressed that really nothing new has been written on food and nutrition for many years. We present our information, which we feel will assist those of you interested in a natural food intake, and of equal importance, a balanced intake of the correct food for that person's needs. A scientist friend has had a difficult time with the scientific community accepting his views. When his views were facts, he did not publish them as theories. Now his views accepted, there is less theory to discard in computers, and in reverence to our successful friend, we state a fact that eliminates most of the food and nutrition books on the market now, in the past, and we can be sure to common behaviour in the near future. The fact is, no fixed diet, advertised or recommended, is sensible for all. If you retain only one important fact from this chapter, it should be that, for the most part, if not totally, no two people are exactly the same in their need for certain foods. That is, until you have yourself in such good condition, you won't need nutritional assistance, and that day and age is not, unfortunately, near the horizon. Your fingerprints and your footprints are not your only distinct and different features. So are your stomach, organs, skin, and circulatory and digestive systems. From the day of your birth, you are different, as are even identical twins, and your environmental living and influences increase the differences. Certainly, there are categories, types, and molds for language communication in attempting some orderly discourse which are too inclined to be accepted as more than guides or formulae. Our nerve fibres, the other many connective parts of our system, from the interrelation of our electrochemical brain to the wiggling of our little toe, are separate and distinct, all to the glory of our functioning creation, operating with the energy of matter that gives our existence. It is not wise to follow any advertised or recommended diet unless we first discuss it with our nutritional counsellor or physician, who knows what we need and do not need. Health foods are in need today for the person interested in increasing or decreasing body weight, and to have a pattern of health allowing freedom in the choice of required foods. No proper nutritionist or physician would tell everyone to follow a certain food pattern, yet many books on the market today state that certain foods should or should not be taken into the human system without exception. Any proper understanding of one's basic food needs should consider the very fundamental needs necessary to support the living system for health, healing, and happiness. Food alone cannot guarantee good health. Living habits, the working and living environment, stresses, fears, and the mental state of a person all affects one's health. You and your environment, your lifestyle, the work you are doing, or just as important, the work you may not be doing, are the outlook and approach for proper food and nutritional needs. A basic understanding should start at the beginning. What is food? It is that raw material taken into the body system of all living beings as a source of energy, to renew their own structures, to afford and support their life systems. The source of food for man and animals comes from plants, vegetables, fruits, roots, herbs, and other animals. The law of survival in the seas is similar, as fish not only eat other fish, but smaller life forms, such as underwater plants, grasses, and microorganisms. The largest of the animals on this planet live only in nature on grasses, vines, leaves, and natural growing plant life products. Their systems are designed to chew and properly digest foods that were not programmed for man to chew and digest in his system for survival. Many animals thrive on high fiber materials man finds difficult or impossible to digest for food consumption. For example, a cow takes her nourishment from green, growing grass. Her system provides milk for her young and also man. A human being cannot properly digest green grass, nor can a member of the cat family. Neither man nor the cat has the ability to digest fibrous structure of common or improved grass. The cow has several stomachs, not one, as do the cat, the dog, or man. These stomachs break down the grass, digest the fibers, and remove the food value from the grass for life support. Green, growing natural grass is pleasant to observe and has a wonderful fragrance when cut and standing in the fields. The pleasant aroma is the escaping chlorophyll and other vital nutrients man has yet to understand properly how to, quote, bottle for human use. Man could starve to death walking, riding, or lying on a beautiful field of grass, and he has. Man could die of thirst walking through grass, which he has. Man cannot digest grass, but he can place a handful of grass in his mouth, and by chewing it, receive water-like chlorophyll fluids with the same basic nutrients as water, and he could thus survive. Yet man is not as wise in this respect as many of the wild animals. Still, it is a wonder that the giant pharmaceutical firms have not marketed bottled grass, since, at the beginning of the vitamin products, the stool of a bull was marketed as the source of the first vitamin B supplements. Nowadays, with rules, regulations, laws, and counter-laws, food manufacturing, processing, preparing, and packing, natural food is well worn before human consumption, such as white flour and white sugar, and the animals are just too wise to take the chance of eating as man does. It is well known that all natural food comes from solar energy. Without solar energy, we could not have animal or human life, plants, vegetables, fruits, roots, or herbs that provide natural growing foods. The sun's solar energy acts in a process called photosynthesis, converting sunlight into food. The plant, from this energy, provides digestive activity and food for man and animals. Without solar energy, our environmental atmosphere would not furnish the air necessary for man's breathing. This applies equally to all animals. Even fish life in the ponds, lakes, oceans, and rivers must have oxygen to survive. Water contains dissolved oxygen, providing fish and underwater creatures, as well as plants and grasses underwater, with this necessary life support. With the aid of solar energy, green leaves, grasses, trees, foliage, and vegetation provide nitrogen that is also necessary for all living systems on this planet. Small leaves, as well as tiny insects, bugs, flies, and larger animals, when they die, as well as decaying logs, leaves, and tree branches, act to provide nitrogen in the atmosphere and further the growth of plants. The cycle of nature and life and death is evident in this process. Even petroleum is natural, a natural oil generally believed to be formed from organic materials, such as plants and animals, buried in sedimentary rocks. The air we breathe is mostly 74% nitrogen and 24% oxygen. Smaller percentages of argon, carbon dioxide, and other gases also exist. If the balance to which man is accustomed changes, then man must adjust his system to these changes or perish. Substantial evidence exists that such has occurred on this planet with man-like species, whether we consider recent studies that man has existed on the Earth over 250 million years, or the more accepted studies of man's existence for 3.3 to 3.8 million years. We could not have food without sunlight, nor could we have food without nitrogen. Without green, growing leaves, grass, trees, plant and animal life, our environmental balance, all from the energy of the sun, cannot produce our natural foods. The food needed by man and animals must have a source of nitrogen, such as proteins. Animals can live on proteins alone, but they cannot live on fats and carbohydrates without a supporting nitrogen supplement. What are some general misconceptions about foods? Let's start with potatoes, since most persons look upon them as increasing body weight. This is not true. There are a number of health reports, including respected foreign reports, that involved the testing of thousands of persons to determine if potatoes increased weight. The result were no increase in weight, and more than usual amounts of potatoes were individually consumed. In fact, potatoes contain digestive starches that pass through the human system with little effort. It is not the potatoes, but what you put on them that makes them, and other foods, a source of increased body weight. There will always be some food that is good for the great majority of people, but to some this food will be improper to their system. Since we are all somewhat different in our biological makeup, this is to be expected. Nutritional counselling may be necessary for a proper food substitute that we can enjoy, as well as take the place of a food that does not agree with us. Potatoes may not be suitable for some, just as eggs, tomatoes, cucumbers, and watermelon are not suitable for others. The list is endless. What about tomatoes? It is generally said that when tomatoes upset the stomach, it is due to their acid content. Well, that is also incorrect. It is not the acid in the tomato, but the alkaline that upsets the stomach. This is due to less digestive acids in the stomach. The hydrochloric acids that normally digest food are in low supply. Therefore, any alkaline food, such as tomatoes, would react to this imbalance. Anyway, tomatoes are not all that good for us. They contain 33% undigested starches and sugars, and they could be fattening. If tomatoes upset your stomach because they are too alkaline for your system, you can cure this difficulty by taking diluted amounts of prescribed hydrochloric acid as an aid to food digestion before or after each meal. Otherwise, not only tomatoes, but other foods will give you difficulties due to the lack of digestive acids in your system. Now, let's look at the coin from another angle. If you're getting relief checks, perhaps you wouldn't work even if you could. If you're taking a part of the human body and adding an outside stimulant, then that part of your body may well take the attitude of not trying to perform properly, since it will be artificially supported. This type of support sends a signal to the system to slow down. Why work, since we will have outside support? If the system can be stimulated to do its proper function without continued support, wouldn't this be the better method? In our laboratory research, we have increased the flow of digestive acids in animals by placing a small south pole end of a magnet to the animal's stomach for half an hour each day. Over a relatively short period of time, This positive energy, which is similar to the positive energy of the human system, acted to stimulate the digestive activity. This allowed us to feed alkaline foods to the smaller animals, cats, dogs, ourselves, and other volunteers. The details of this research are in our former publications, Magnetism and its Effects on the Living System, and The Magnetic Effect, Exposition Press, Hicksville, New York. A smaller pamphlet, The Anatomy of Biomagnetics, on our animal research, is available only from our laboratory in Green Cove Springs, Florida. We are not suggesting you use a magnet nor any other method to experiment on yourself. Our material is available for research purposes only. The point we are stressing here is that when a part of your system does not function properly, you should seek a doctor or other professional specialist to advise a natural method and not use outside support that will hinder your system from performing as it was intended. Consider eating alkaline foods, then high acid foods. An allergy to a food means trouble in your system, so let it be a lesson and try to correct the reasons. Poor digestion, gas after meals, stomach swelling after meals, stomach aches, headaches, and a most common symptom, no interest, no pleasure in foods, indicates you need professional assistance. If you were to listen and read seriously all the information published on foods, you would probably have doubts about eating anything. This situation, as it has in the past, shortens the lives of countless men and women trying to have good health in their mature years. It equally applies to befuddling younger persons. Many health authorities advise that sugar and salt are bad for you. The government advises that you don't need vitamins because your daily intake of food is sufficient. These are preposterous statements. The responsible professional does not hesitate to recommend vitamins if that is what the system needs. And what about sugar and salt? We know that the amount of sugar in your blood is an important part of nature's way of providing energy for your system. Unless a medical reason exists, such as diabetes, no person should completely remove intake of sugars, honey, or other forms of sweeteners from their diet. A normal, active person with no medical problems needs a certain amount of sugar intake each day. We have known personally in some 40 years of research a number of food authorities and authors on natural foods, whose appearance makes you think they are not long for this earth. Some have written books on diets for the relief of cancers and later died of cancers themselves. Others, with their special diets, healthful for everyone, are such a mixed up group, biologically and otherwise, they really need a good spanking to shock some sense into them. To take a popular opinion and write a diet book on that opinion without practical and biological research is a dangerous concern we now have with many food and nutrition publications. Remember, the greatest help you can give yourself is to learn what your system needs to support your lifestyle. No two persons have the same lifestyles and reactions to certain foods. It is therefore almost impossible for anyone to advise you completely. Your professional consultant does not have the time, even if he has the concern, to know all about you. Even when you are trying to tell him as much as you can remember to help his appraisal, this information is not usually complete. Just for a minute, take a pencil and paper and write down the foods that you really and sincerely know are good and bad for you. Be as honest as you can be with yourself and follow it through in your eating habits. You definitely will be appreciative of how much better you will feel and the energy you will have. Natural foods are good for you, just as some artificial foods are good for you. Try to become more in tune with your system. in awareness of the signs your stomach and your system send to your brain. It really does happen this way, so try it and find out for yourself. You have the ability to know more about yourself than any person can tell you. Don't become a mechanical being without thought and feeling for yourself, as advertisements and commercialism threaten in their communications to you. You can listen, read, take advice, and do what you really sincerely know is best for your system, maintaining peace and order in its biological interplay with your environment. And don't let mistakes one day be an excuse for you not doing better the next day. It all comes down to self-help, doesn't it? You've got to help yourself, or all the advice in the world won't help you. You don't need to be an expert, but you can become an expert on yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't go around getting on everyone's nerves in the process. If you're sincere about helping yourself in diet and nutrition, there are a few basic rules you can follow, and which many excellent professionals will advise. Number 1. First, you have to know what you are eating every day, and you really don't pay that much attention. Carry a small notebook with you, and every time you put a peanut, soft drink, glass of water, any food or drink into your system, write it down for that day. If you do this for a week or longer, there is no way you can avoid, if you are sincere, bettering your system by change or supplement for balanced food and nutrition. Number 2. Take some exercise every day. Walking is the best tonic for most persons, different though we are. Some exercise every day is a big help, and you can increase the amount according to your health. Also, it is important to get proper rest. Number 3. Try to work without straining. Let it come naturally, so to speak, and have a more pleasant outlook upon your life. An excellent tonic for diet and nutrition. Forgiveness, tolerance, understanding, love, avoiding association with unpleasant persons, all help your system to function scientifically in better working order. Number 4. If you can't help yourself to perform as well as you desire, then seek professional assistance. These 4 rules will just about cover all the necessary information there is on all the writings about diet and nutrition. Now, let's talk about salt, which so many experts say is not good for you. Our blood has salt content. Without salt in our blood, we would all be very sick persons. If we do not take salt into our system, the fluids in our system must attempt to manufacture our salt needs. We are adding a workload to our system which can cause more serious difficulties. A little salt is needed, not a salt-free diet, unless we are in that very special class of persons who on medical advice should not take any salt. Some of the same books that recommend no salt advise us to drink salty seawater or mineral water where the salt content is high. Let's look at sea salt and salt water. For example, do you want to drink water or eat salt that has the organisms of decayed fish and human waste? We would think not. Yet this is what you are doing in drinking seawater or eating salt from the ocean after it has been dried and offered to you. When salt is mined from the great salt flats of the world, it has for millions of years been in sunlight, dried and washed with clean rainwater. For millions of years, salt has remained free from bacteria. When it is taken from mines deep in the earth, it is washed and pressure dried. Would you rather have this salt or the salt in the seas? Do you need salt? The cows that provide milk need salt. In fact, all animals need salt. Salt also acts as a purifier in your system against bacteria and disease. So if you're still in doubt, talk to your doctor after a physical examination and have a discussion about yourself. Salt adds flavour to your foods. It is a purifier, and the body manufactures it for your blood. Your body's glands produce salt for the water in the body and in your blood. One of the outstanding authorities in the field of practical nutrition is a man who is not satisfied with the many publications on food and nutrition. He is a man who does not simply, quote, look up an answer from a book, but will research for a factual answer. We have had discussions and personal conferences at our research laboratory with this man, Dr. William Ellis, now residing in Arlington, Texas. He has provided us with answers to questions that have stumped the experts. His research discovered that a tomato is not the excess acid producer it was thought to be, but turned the stomach too alkaline. And his research uncovered the fact that excess acid systems are principally due to excess hydrochloric acid, primarily from the body system and not from certain suspected foods. The quote, big three you hear about in food and nutrition, excepting cancer discussion, are arthritis, calciums, and iron. Arthritis, a leader in human complaints, has a host of advertised drugs and other remedies on the market, including, believe it or not, fluid injectable, quote, gold. In our research, we have seen that arthritis of the most common type responds so adequately to lemon juice, sugar, and water that it is a wonder this is not bottled as a, quote, newfound drug. This is a natural remedy we have personally seen to be very effective. We know of many persons who will take 12 lemons, 1 quart of water, and 1/4 pound of sugar, squeeze the juice from the lemons, remove seeds and pulp, strain and add the water with sugar or brown sugar, but not honey. Place in the refrigerator and drink it instead of water for 2 weeks or more, making more as needed. These persons then drink 1/2 as much water, tea, or coffee as they normally would drink, and instead drink plenty of this natural lemon remedy. Lemon juice is an acid. Arthritis in many instances is the build-up of calciums, which are alkalines. When natural acids are introduced into a system having too much alkaline, the acid acts to reduce the excess alkalines and the calciums by slowly working itself into the joints. In the instance of diabetes, no sugar should be added. According to individual taste, sweeteners may be added. Honey is not recommended as it has other vital chemical reagents, although honey is otherwise a very wonderful food source. There are important differences of opinion in the use of natural foods. For example, nearly all natural food adherents insist on natural iron from spinach and vegetables. What is so wrong about synthetic iron? Do you know that you would have to eat about 50 pounds of spinach to get 10 milligrams of pure iron into your system, about the amount that would cover the surface of a quarter coin? Actually, there is no such thing as synthetic iron. Man does not make iron. It is found in nature as iron ore and in plants, leaves, and vegetables. Due to insufficient amounts in vegetation, iron is reduced from ore by chemical means and added to foods. In olden days, when natural lemon juice was more frequently used, and honey, the pioneers would soak nails in water until they developed rust. Then they would scrape off the red or dark iron and mix it with their foods. This iron oxide allowed more iron into the blood than could be consumed in 10 pounds of spinach. We do not recommend this method, nor any method, to all of you, but this was one of the older ways of acquiring iron into the system, as most of the iron in spinach and vegetables will pass through the system with only about 10% of this intake remaining. Why do most natural food followers worry about, quote, synthetic iron intake? Any biochemist will tell you that refined iron can be more quickly taken into the body system, including your blood, than that by consuming 10 to 50 pounds of spinach. When we grow older, we should become more wise, or do we? What we are to a great extent is due to what we eat. Thousands of health followers eat raw carrots, raw nuts, raw cabbage, raw this and that, all non-cooked foods. There are many health food experts that advise this procedure for a more natural and healthful life. A younger person's stomach and digestive system can take more of this punishment than older persons. The more mature we grow, the more care we must have for our internal organs, digestion, and the food we eat. But not if we listen to the many authorities advising the consumption of raw, non-cooked foods. Eating raw nuts and any kind of raw vegetables will add to the workload of our digestive system. As we mature, our digestive systems slow down. Eating raw foods will overburden our system, taking years off our life, if half-starving is the way we want to go. If you must eat raw nuts, raw this and that, take a lesson from the squirrel. A squirrel will chew and chew until the raw food is almost a paste before swallowing. Nuts, raw vegetables, and other non-cooked foods are healthy for us, but are we carefully trained to properly chew and digest these materials? A tiny fragment of a nut, poorly chewed, can lodge in our system and be harmful to our general health as well as our digestion. Would the sensible mother feed her young child raw carrots, raw bits of cabbage, uncooked foods? The child would not receive enough nourishment to grow up strong and well, even with a strong stomach. Health, healing, and happiness can be yours in foods and nutrition if you leave the wild foods to the wild creatures of the forests. Salads, properly prepared, raw lettuce leaves and finely chopped carrots, pre-steamed, not boiled, olives, sweet peas, pre-steamed to soften, natural foods, yes, but prepared with sensibility for human beings, not for your favourite rabbit or squirrel. You will then look healthy, act healthy, and be healthy. One nutrition expert has likened the authors who suggest natural foods, which are not natural to the human system, as best defined by, quote, taking the first 3 letters of the word nutrition and simply adding the letter S. These wild and woolly nature-born writers would not have the strength to write such garbage if they followed their own advice. Here is the best one. Thou shalt not eat meat. Human beings were designed biologically and chemically to eat meat. Meat has the basic needed nutrition all men, women, and children should have in their diets. If you just won't eat meat, then have your nutritional counsellor recommend a substitute. Most of the meat you purchase at your local store comes from cattle, cows, beef, pigs, chickens, and turkeys that are fed with super growth hormones to speed up their growth. A number of these hormones have produced cancer in animal tests. If this is a danger to your health, you can be sure it will not soon be eliminated with the multi-million-dollar crash programs for producing foods. Florida, where the authors live, has the highest rising rate of cancer cases in the United States. Reasons may well be feed enforced with chemicals to produce more food, the water, and the weather. Florida's milk-producing cattle, the condition of the dairies and packing houses, and increases in the use of fertilizers show different kinds of animals are not only more intelligent than we formerly considered. Florida's milk-producing cattle, the condition of the dairies and packing houses, and increases in the use of fertilizers in hot, humid weather at low altitudes of elevation are considerations. Combine these factors with the influx of older citizens into the state. When a person spends most of his or her life in a cool and less humid climate, then moves to a hot, wet, damp, low-altitude climate, is there any wonder why aging hastens or cancer is evident? Heat is disorder, and cold is order, as biologists and biochemists will tell you. Consider well the effect on your health before moving to Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, or Louisiana from a cooler, less erratic climate. While, quote, northerners come south, the, quote, southerners are looking for their mountain home. Health, healing, and happiness are yours for the asking if you use your common sense in acquiring nourishment and stay away from the big money-making fads. Why do you have to eat your big meals according to the clock? 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 12 noon to 1 p.m., 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Try to arrange your eating habits the best you can with family, job, and lifestyle so that you can have your meals when you feel hungry, not because it's, quote, time for food. Don't live to eat food to live. Look within yourself and you will find your system helping you to decide what you can and cannot eat. Moderation is always sensible with any foods, and you can enjoy nourishment. The human system welcomes nourishment for replenishing energy. You need consultation if you cannot adapt yourself to enjoy nourishment. During our many years in studying the natural life and in working with animals, there is no doubt in our opinion that human beings can learn about their own foods and nutrition by observing how the animals handle their foods. The little monkey will take a fresh ear of corn or a grape, and before placing the corn in his mouth, he will bite off the end of a corn kernel, suck out the corn meat, and throw the kernel away. He knows that the covering of a single kernel of corn will not digest easily. He will not eat the skin of a grape, but will remove it and the seeds, and eat only the meat within the grape. When he eats worms or insects, he will remove parts to acquire only the meat. You may be surprised to learn that earthworms and other insects are gaining popularity for human consumption, as the earthworm, especially, is very high in protein content. We, as human beings, have not given proper attention to knowledge we can obtain from animals to assist our own lifestyle. We seem surprised when the studies now frequently published show different kinds of animals are not only more intelligent than we formerly considered, but they are also capable of learning more human attributes than we had believed. The skin on grapes and their seeds do not digest well in human stomachs, nor does the skin on corn, beans, fruits, or most other vegetables, and we must also include the skin of many, if not all, of the meats we consume daily. Yes, you should seriously consider removing the skins of chickens, wild birds, fowl, turkeys, in fact the skin of any animal before eating the meat. Another habit man has developed is eating certain inner organs of animals, including livers and kidneys, and eyes, ears, and tongues. It is highly suspect, if not substantiated by test reports, you might accept, that these parts of animals, although subjected to various cooking methods, still carry organisms and chemicals in their basic protein fluids. If this is true, we have more reason to suspect the developing in animals, from the animal parts, diseases that we dread, as well as ailments to which we are unaccustomed. When eating meat, it is the inner food of the meat substance that is the most nourishing, and not the skin or organ parts. In the same manner, it is better for you to consume the inner flesh of fruits and vegetables. You would not think of eating scales from the outside of a fish, and perhaps, as is practiced in some cultures, you would not leave the heads of a fish intact to cook and consume for your nourishment. The head of a fish, if not cooked very carefully, very professionally, has segments not fit for human consumption, and could also act to affect adversely the other meat of the fish. You are an individual, scientifically, biologically, and in many other ways beneficial to your health. There can be certain rules to follow for your health, healing, and happiness in food and nutrition. How effective you will be in nourishing your food replenishment for better living depends upon how well you discover and conscientiously apply that which you learn about your individual self.